Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon and welcome. This has been an incredible day talking about AI and the future, and I'm here to share with you a little bit about how we are envisioning that future from an EHR, EMR perspective. If I could have my slides up, please, that would be great. We'll just give it just a moment until the slides are up. Not this, the slides. No, not laptop. Oh yeah, the okay. I feel like I should tell you a joke, or maybe do some dancing. I came here from Australia, where we're famous for our breakdancing. I don't know if any of you watched the Olympics, but Australia actually turns out to be the home of breakdancing. And sadly, I'm the only Australian who can't breakdance, so you probably won't see me doing that today. Keep talking, they're saying. Okay, well, I guess I'll tell you that you'll be happy to know that you don't have to listen to me for the entire session today. I'm joined by an all-star cast of 3 doctors who you'll meet shortly, but you do have to endure hearing me talk a little bit before I introduce my incredible co-stars for today's performance. I think we're almost there. I see some slides coming up, which is great because I'm almost out of jokes. I do have a couple of more jokes, but it's probably not appropriate to tell you in this venue, but maybe afterwards we can get together in a slightly less formal scenario. Okay. And we have some slides. Wonderful. Okay. So I don't know why there's a picture of my old car. That's my new car over there. No, neither of them are my cars. We're done with the joking. So what I'm showing you here are concept cars. So these are cars that automakers create to help us envision the future. So what is a concept car? They demonstrate visionary and exciting features that of the next generation of vehicles. They're not necessarily ready to take out on the road today, but they exist in order to help us envision the future. And I'm thinking of the EHR in a similar way. And what we're going to be talking about today is basically the EHR concept car of the future. So I thought I'd look at some of the themes from concept cars recently. And I think as you read these, you'll see some things that are familiar. There's integrated data. They're personalized. They're highly configurable. They're exciting. They use augmented reality. There's a lot of artificial intelligence. They're built for user engagement. And the last thing is they're unconstrained by previous designs. So you see these cars, and you can tell they're a car, but they're not necessarily built as cars of today. And I think from an EHR perspective, that last one is a really important point. As Paul mentioned, we're in this new era of, and I do agree with Paul, by the way, that I think the next 10 years are going to be incredible. The next 2 years, probably not as fast as we're expecting. But from an EHR, EMR development perspective, we are very much thinking about what is an EHR in the world of generative AI? What is an EHR in the world of big data, of cloud systems? And let's reimagine the way we build an EHR unconstrained by our traditional designs. Now, in a car, the traditional design is the wheels only go in one direction, it has a certain combustion engine and all of those sorts of things. I think from an EHR perspective, you can think of the traditional designs as being boxes and drop downs and tick boxes, and sort of forcing the users to adjust to the way the system is built. And there's all kinds of good reasons for that. But we're just beginning to imagine a future where things look a little bit different from that. Moving away from cars to the future of healthcare, I wanted to think a little bit about what's coming in the future. And I think we're all in the business here of thinking about the future of healthcare and the future of digital health. And I think these themes are going to seem familiar to you. So this is not so much from an EHR perspective, but what we see coming in the next few years of healthcare. So data-driven, right? Intelligent. Healthcare without an address. So I travel all over the world speaking to our clients, and we're continually hearing how they're expanding outside the hospital into patients' homes, into regional, smaller clinics and communities where we used to build large hospitals and larger hospitals. The focus now very much is in keeping patients out of the hospital. Predictive and proactive is an important theme. So how does this translate then to the EMR? What can an EMR look like when the limitations that we've lived with for many, many years, often, by the way, brought on by regulation and revenue cycle concerns. There's a lot of aspects of EMR design that are driven by the need to put certain data in a certain place to drive funding, for example, and that's a very unnatural thing for physicians. So from an interoperability perspective, I always say that TrakCare is the most open and interoperable EMR in the world, actually, and I truly believe that. But I think in general, we'll see EMRs move from interoperability as being something that's added on to something that's envisioned from the start. Everything you build in an EMR must be interoperable because there's no way any EMR vendor could build a system that does everything. We exist in an ecosystem, and we must always consider how we integrate with other systems. Decision support tends to be very reactive today and very sort of point-focused. You save a piece of data and you get the decision support. I think we'll start to see much more predictive work. We'll see decision support actually reaching out, for example, alerting you that perhaps you don't have enough staff in your emergency department 2 weeks from today because based on our model's prediction, we think your emergency department will have an unusual number of patients based on a number of factors. So that kind of proactive, predictive nature of decision support starts to become important. User experience becomes much more natural. So we talked a little bit before about drop-downs and radio buttons and having to put mandatory fields. I think particularly for the clinical users, we really need to move away from that, and we'll start to see a little bit of that. Care plans will become much more wellness-based rather than, again, sort of reactive. And patient experience, I think all of you probably have, in the last 6 months, all of the apps you use on your phone now have AI chatbots, and we're very used to this conversational approach as consumers. So the consumer expectation is changing rapidly, and when consumers meet an app that feels old-fashioned, there's friction, and they'll look to your competitors, because whether you're in public healthcare or private healthcare, you have competitors. And so the patient experience is equally important for this. So kind of summing all of this up, we think that the next generation of EMRs will be intuitive, proactive, and unbound. So I'm trying here to sort of summarize all of those aspects that I thought of, but I want you to think about the idea of an EMR unconstrained by the past is intuitive, predictive, and unbound. So it's always worth validating what we think with what we're hearing in the market. So I always listen very deeply to our customers when I get the chance to talk to them, which luckily is quite often. I also listen to industry analysts because they're talking to many more customers than I can talk to. And the good news is they're kind of mirroring this. So Gartner talks a lot about this concept of intelligent health, and they even use the term unbound. And these directions that are underpinning this rise of this intelligent health platform. We see Deloitte again going through this transition of these different aspects. And I don't really want to belabor the analyst view, but I wanted to share this with you because I'm seeing absolute alignment between what I hear from the customers, what we believe, and what the analysts believe. And that tells me that from a strategic point of view, we're moving in the right direction, which is where we want to go. So with that in mind, let's go for a test drive. So before we start, I want to say we're going to be doing a live demo here of some of these things. It's real software. We work on this every day. We're investing quite heavily in this. But like a concept car, the things you're going to see are not quite ready for market. At the very end, I'll let you know how you can be involved in the next steps. We'd really like to work together with many of you. But I just wanted to share that disclaimer that you can't buy what I'm showing you today right away. Think of it as a concept car, but because we're software, we work on a somewhat faster cycle than automobile manufacturers, thankfully. So to help us, I'd like to introduce our first guest, Dr. Bella from our great customer here in Jakarta, EMC. Dr. Bella works in corporate medical for EMC. She's also a practicing physician. And it's wonderful to have you here.
Hello, Dimitri. Hey, everyone.
Have a seat, Dr. Bella.
Thank you.
So, Bella, you and I have talked quite a lot about challenges, particularly around clinical documentation.
Sure.
So why don't you share with us what you observe, both in your own practice and with what you're hearing from the physicians at EMC?
Okay, so we are going to talk about the outpatient perspective here, right?
Yes.
Okay, so basically, doctors are required to write what we call SOAP notes for every patient that they treat, every patient that they examine. And this means, in addition for seeing and caring the patients, the doctors needs to document the patient's complaint and the findings through the narrative notes, which help captures the details and context of each case. And alongside this, the doctors also need to enter the structured data, such as diagnosis, and of course, using ICD-10 codes, which make more time to find the exact code that matches the clinical diagnosis. And after that, I think this one is a big and huge part of all, is when the doctor needs to place an orders like medications, laboratory, or radiology, or even the procedures when it's necessary. And all of the structured data are really crucial for ensuring the accuracy and the consistency of the patient's record. But, however, the challenge arises because the data entry process often involves like multiple steps and too many clicks, and it can be time consuming, and sometimes it feels like it detracts from the personal interactions with the patients and more towards to the systems. But before that, I think I'd like to confirm it first to all of our audience.
Okay.
So I like to help from you guys. Mungkin bisa dibantu ya, siapa yang punya challenge yang sama. So may I have some hands for those who agree with me that the data entry process often involves too many clicks and multiple steps. May I have some hands?
Uh-oh. It's a lot of hands.
Like what I guess? Okay, thank you, I appreciate it.
So the documentation you discussed, this happens with the patient in the exam room, correct?
Right.
And how much time do you typically spend writing that SOAP note, first of all, without the other parts?
So it's probably going to take like 5 minutes or so.
Yeah, about 5 minutes per patient. And a busy outpatient doctor at EMC, how many patients a day would they typically see?
It's about maybe 10 or 20 patients per day.
Okay, so we're talking a substantial amount of time.
Right.
So let's see if we can do a little bit better. I understand you're about to have an appointment with Dr. Andra from InterSystems as a patient. Let me just get things set up over here. If we could have the two computers on the screen now, please. Oh, and Emmeline, I need you to log me in here. Oh, okay. Let's just get everything ready. Okay, so we're here in our EMR. And so what I'm going to do is Dr. Andra has come, I believe, with a bad cough. So I'm first going to pull up her record here. So I'm going to search for her, and we'll go to her encounter record. And what I'll do first is I'll pull up our AI chat component. And why don't we, I'll get to stand up here so I can get a better view of the screen. We'll say, please provide a brief pre-visit summary. So again, an intuitive, just natural language way of interacting. So not a lot of information. I don't think she's been seen for some time here, but I see she's got a latex allergy. She was diagnosed with carpal tunnel syndrome as well as chronic depression. Now, we talked a little bit about this concept of being transparent with AI. So one thing that I can do here is you'll see if you can see down in the lower right, the AI is suggesting some EMR charts that might be of interest. So for example, I'll pull up the patient summary chart. You'll see that load on the left-hand side of the screen. So you can actually, as a user, go in and check and see, yes, there's the carpal tunnel syndrome and the chronic depression diagnosis. The latex allergy is down there. I think as we get more comfortable with these systems, we may do less and less of this validation. But as you roll them out, as we adopt, it's incredibly important for the users to be able to see this. So what we'll do is we'll go back to the encounter record here. And I have on just behind me here my phone, which has the InterSystems ambient assistant. So what I'm going to do here is bring up a QR code, which is for this particular patient. We'll scan the QR code. Make sure we've got Andra. So we've got Andra there. And when the, Andra, if you want to come up now. And Bella, when the appointment starts, I'd like you to just push the big blue button, put the phone on the table between you, and conduct the appointment in a natural human way. And when you're finished with the appointment, just press the button again to stop it.
Okay, cool, I give it a try. Hey, since the patients and I are both from Indonesia, is that okay if we conduct with Bahasa Indonesia?
So this is a live demo, so I think I have to say yes.
That's okay?
We'll see how this goes. I don't speak Bahasa Indonesia, but please do proceed as you're most comfortable.
Okay, thank you, Dimitri. Shall we start? Oke, selamat pagi, Ibu. Ada keluhan apa, Bu?
Halo dok, saya batuk-batuk parah beberapa bulan ini. Saya juga mengalami sesak napas setiap hari, dok.
Oke, bisa Ibu ceritakan lebih lanjut kapan Ibu mulai merasa sesaknya?
Sekitar sebulan yang lalu lah, dok. Dan kondisinya memang semakin parah. Padahal ya dok, dulu saya bisa jalan kaki hingga 2 kilo ke tempat saya kerja. Sekarang saya harus istirahat setelah saya jalan beberapa ratus meter. Padahal waktu saya masih muda ya dok, saya biasa ikut lomba lari. Saya bahkan pernah ikut maraton. Tapi sekarang saya nggak bisa naik tangga tanpa saya ngerasa kelelahan. Dan kalau saya kelelahan, batuk-batuknya juga jadi semakin parah dokter.
Oke, sebelumnya Ibu pernah ada keluhan seperti ini nggak?
Nggak pernah sih dok. Waktu saya kecil saya memang pernah serangan asma, tapi sudah hilang sejak lama.
Nah, waktu sesak nafas nih Bu, apa yang Ibu lakukan?
Saya berhenti aja dok, dan saya istirahat sebentar. Dalam beberapa menit kondisi saya akan membaik.
Oke, nah selain ini ada keluhan lain nggak Bu? Seperti nyeri dada, demam, berkeringat, atau menggigil seperti itu ada nggak Bu?
Nggak ada sih dok, nggak ada nyeri atau gejala lain.
Oke, Ibu ada riwayat penyakit seperti hipertensi, tekanan darah tinggi ya Bu, atau kencing manis, atau saat ini Ibu ada konsumsi obat-obatan rutin nggak di rumah?
Saya punya tekanan darah tinggi dok, saya minum obat lisinopril.
Oke, lisinoprilnya Ibu tahu nggak berapa banyak Ibu minumnya?
Saya nggak yakin dok, tapi yang saya minum pilnya warna kuning. Saya minum 1 pil sehari.
Oke, jadi kemungkinan Ibu minum pil lisinopril yang 40 mg. Oke, sebelumnya maaf ya Bu ya, Ibu ada riwayat merokok?
Oh iya dok.
Nah, udah berapa lama nih Ibu merokok?
Sekitar 20 tahun.
Wow.
Saya merokok 1 bungkus per hari dok.
Oke, nah kayaknya kita udah ketemu nih Bu apa masalahnya nih. Jadi Bu, merokok itu sangat berpengaruh Bu untuk paru-paru Ibu. Nah jadi berdasarkan cerita Ibu nih, kita suspek atau kita mengarah Ibu ini menderita penyakit paru obstruktif kronik atau kita sebutnya PPOK. Nah Ibu pernah dengar nggak Bu tentang PPOK?
Saya pernah baca dikit sih dok di internet.
Oke, jadi Bu kita perlu kaji lagi nih Bu lebih lanjut mengenai PPOK-nya. Nah terutama bisa kita lihat Ibu ada riwayat merokok, ada riwayat asma juga dulunya. Nah dari pemeriksaan tadi saya dengar ada suara mengi Bu di paru-paru bagian atas dan juga ada penurunan suara nafas di beberapa area paru-paru Ibu. Nah, ini nih yang biasanya memang terjadi pada penderita PPOK.
Waduh, saya nggak nyangka bakal menderita seperti ini, Dok. Apakah hal ini bisa hilang dengan sendirinya?
Nah, tentunya tidak ya Bu, tanpa pengobatan. Jadi setelah ini saya akan melakukan beberapa pemeriksaan, nah termasuk spirometri, ada ronsen dada, ada juga pemeriksaan darah ya Bu, untuk memastikan apakah ibu ini benar menderita PPOK dan seberapa parah kondisinya. Nah, sementara itu saya juga akan meresepkan inhaler Symbicort untuk digunakan 2 kali sehari. Nah, nanti kalau ibu udah agak enakan, ibu tetap bisa pakai ya Bu ya. Nah, selain itu kita perlu merencanakan untuk bantu ibu untuk ngatasin rokoknya nih Bu. Jadi nanti kita akan kasih materi edukasi untuk ibu bisa pelajari di rumah juga. Dan nanti akan saya buatkan jadwalkan janji untuk ketemu lagi ya Bu, sekitar 4 minggu setelah hasilnya sudah keluar. Nah nanti kalau ibu ada khawatir, takut-takut gitu di rumah, atau misalnya ada keluhan memburuk, ibu bisa hubungin saya atau bisa langsung ke emergency di IMC Alam Sutra.
Oke Dok, makasih ya Dok atas bantuannya.
Oke, sama-sama, sehat selalu ya Bu.
Makasih dokter.
So let's turn the recording off. Let's give our patient a big round of applause. So for the benefit of those of us who don't speak Bahasa Indonesia, can you give a quick summary of what happened?
Sure. So the patients came in complaining with a bad cough, which hasn't been getting better for some times. And we have talked about a few things that I found out that she is a heavy smoker, and I suspect that she has a PPOK, or what we call chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. And I told her that I'm running some tests to confirm it, and that I prescribe a Symbicort inhaler in the meantime to make her feel a bit better.
Okay, wonderful. So what's happened in the meantime after they had that conversation, the audio that we've captured on the phone has been streamed back to our server. We've done a voice-to-text analysis and using AI, and we'll see what happens. Now, I obviously don't speak Bahasa Indonesia, and so one of the things I find fascinating about this technology is this is probably relatively common, where you're speaking to a patient in one language, but you must document in another language. So you can see I've captured the recording here. I'm going to select it. And if you can see down at the bottom right, it's a little difficult to read. You'll read it later. There's an English language prompt that we're exposing the prompts, and you may choose to change these prompts. This is one we've found works pretty well, requesting a SOAP summary. So Dr. Bella mentioned SOAP as the preferred documentation format for clinical notes in EMC, and that stands for Subjective, Objective, Assessment, and Plan. So structured documentation. So let's see how we do. You can see the prompt repeated there. And I'll just read the English. I will make the font a little bit bigger here so you can read it. So patient reports severe coughing for several months, daily shortness of breath. History, no similar complaints. History of hypertension, currently taking lisinopril, takes 1 yellow pill daily. Smokes 1 pack of cigarettes for the past 20 years. Objective, wheezing in the upper lungs and decreased breath sounds. And then there's the diagnosis, suspected COPD based on the smoking history, childhood asthma, and current symptoms. So it's done a pretty good job.
That's pretty good.
So what we can do here is select to copy to clinical notes. And you'll see on the other side there, we've opened the text editor. We've put that text into our clinical note. You'll note at the top, and this is very important, it says AI-generated content. So we have some work to do to figure out how to best flag this content for the future. But it's open in an editor now, and I may choose to make a change, make an addition, do something different. Maybe I like my formatting differently. Maybe my organization likes something different. And we'll update that, so that goes into the record as a clinical note. So there's that 5 minutes or so per patient that we talked about, times 20 to 30 patients a day. We think this represents a tremendous savings as well as a benefit to the patients, which is hugely important. Now, Dr. Belli, you mentioned that in addition to the SOAP note, you must also put some actions into the record.
Yes. Well, so I still have to add some professional diagnosis, add some alerts, and place some orders, and basically navigate around the EHR to make sure that all of the structured data gets in with the right terminology.
Yeah,
and this will probably takes me another 5 minutes or so. Or do you want me to show you?
Well, let's see what the AI does. Why don't you just stay seated comfortably for now?
Okay.
Some of you may have noticed the word actions there. So I'm just going to click on actions, and let's see what happens. So what you're seeing here is we've identified some specific terminology-based actions from that audio recording. So you'll see the order for spirometry, the chest X-ray, and a little plus next to it. Now, a couple of things are important here. One of the principles of good AI is around explainability. You must always be able to understand why the AI is saying this. So you may notice if I hover over spirometry, there's some text in Bahasa Indonesia there that presumably, I would hope, it's saying something to do with spirometry. There's also this little speaker icon. I'll click on that. And you should be hearing audio. Let's try another one. We'll try
Jadi
this
setelah
one.
ini saya akan melakukan beberapa pemeriksaan, yang termasuk spirometri, ada ronsen dada, ada juga pemeriksaan darah ya Bu.
So we've jumped directly to that point in the conversation where that was discussed. So let's add the chest X-ray with that little plus, and you'll see down here at the bottom, we've just placed the chest X-ray order, again, mapped to terminology based on a search of your EMR system. Smoking, we'll put the social history of smoking in, which is important. Maybe you're coming back at the end of the day and you want to check.
Ada riwayat merokok? Oh iya dong. Oke. Nah, udah berapa lama nih Ibu merokok? Sekitar 20 tahun.
So again, making it very transparent and very easy to determine where this comes from. And of course, the diagnosis. We've mapped this to an ICD code. We'll put that in with 1+. And you start to see why this is so exciting for us. We see all of these, not just the text itself, but these specific actions that drive downstream systems and build your record. And some of the feedback we've had from other doctors who we've worked with is they're actually finding that they're adding more than they normally would. Things that were too much trouble before, so you start to build a much more comprehensive record. So with that in mind, I'd like to talk about whether you are ready for AI. Oh my goodness, something's happening. It's Dr. Emmeline from InterSystems. How can I help you, Dr. Emmeline?
I'm so sorry to interrupt, Dimitri. I'm going to have to recruit everybody on the stage to be members of our cardiac arrest team.
Oh boy.
We have a patient on the ward who's arrested and needs resuscitation.
Who's the patient?
Patient's name is Patricia Goodson. Now,
Okay.
we're going to need a nurse, and the three doctors on this stage have decided that that's going to be you for today.
Excellent. I've always wanted to be a nurse. Just give me a second, please, to scan the patient. Okay, here you go. You can press record when you're ready, and I will go into nurse mode standing by with the good doctors.
Okay, let's get started. Now, the cardiac arrest team has arrived on the ward at 2:30 p.m. Dr. Bella is the team leader, and she's performing a head tilt and chin lift to open the patient's airway, and she's using a bag and mask to ventilate the patient. Dr. Andra is performing chest compressions at a rate of 100 beats per minute, and Nurse Dimitri is attaching the defibrillator paddles. Okay, the team...
Clear!
The team paused briefly to check for rhythm. The patient's in VF, and Nurse Dimitri has delivered a shock. Now, CPR continues for another 2 more minutes, at which point we do another rhythm check. Now, great news, the patient's heart has restarted, and she's got her pulse back, and she's reverted back to sinus rhythm. Excellent. Now, post-resuscitation care includes chest X-ray, blood gas, and admission to ICU.
So that sounded complicated.
It certainly was. Now, that was a simulation of an in-hospital cardiac arrest team working on the patient and performing resuscitation. And that's a really difficult scenario to capture accurately.
Yeah, tell me why that's so difficult.
Well, I mean, usually a cardiac arrest team would have, upwards of 5 or 6 people all converging on the patient location, and there's usually, 4, 5, 6 people performing interventions all at the same time. There would usually be a cardiac arrest team scribe, and that was me today, but instead of writing things down or typing things into a computer, I was just dictating on the ambient assistant. Trust me, the last thing you would want to do in a cardiac arrest is to go and find a computer, log into the computer, find the patient, navigate to the page where you can record his cardiac arrest. You can see that lasted a minute, but sometimes it can last for 45 minutes to an hour.
Well, let's go and see how our EHR did in this case with your recording.
Now, this is the recording we just did. I'm going to make the screen a bit bigger so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so we have another prepared prompt here, which will give us a really nice format for a cardiac arrest resuscitation report. Now you can see that when I was dictating, I could dictate it in any order, but as long as there's some, I put some cues in there around timestamps, you can see that it's picked up a lot of the interventions. Particularly important is who did what at what time, and what was the results of the rhythm check every time they performed it. Okay? I'm going to reduce that back down. And just like Dimitri showed you earlier, if I click on the actions, you can see that, for the post-resuscitation orders, we can say, yep, we wanted a chest X-ray, and we've got a diagnosis here of cardiac arrest. And we'll copy that to a clinical note. Now, normally, somebody from the cardiac arrest team would stay behind, perform all of this documentation, perform the actions, put in the orders, but now we can do it really, really quickly and simply, and we don't have to align to a big form or do a lot of typing.
That's amazing. So we've seen a couple of different paradigms here. We've seen this ambient conversation capture between more than one person, and you've just shown us the ability to dictate and capture in more or less real time what you've done. Are there other circumstances where this dictation paradigm would be useful?
This would be perfect, the perfect tool for something like a ward round or a tumor board, where you have, for something like a ward round, you would have a group of nurses and doctors, normally going from bedside to bedside, seeing a patient, checking in, and you would typically have a senior doctor performing the examination and putting forward some diagnosis for the patient, and then you would have a junior doctor who's acting as a scribe. With this tool, you can go from patient to patient, and by the time you get from patient A to patient B, the ward round documentation would have been completed, and all the orders would have been sent off, rather than somebody coming back and doing all that documentation. I mean, really, in my 20-year career, I've never seen a health information system that would allow more complete, more accurate capture of clinical data, but at the same time, it's really easy to use for the end user.
Yeah, I think it's that combination of ease of use and the ability to actually capture more granular data than you were before. So we're expecting, as we work with our clients, to see improvements in the quality of their records as well as the user experience, and that's a really rare combination, I think. Well, thank you very much. If I could have my last slide up, please. If we could switch back to the PowerPoint, and I'll just close on this one note. But I think you can start to see why we're so excited about this technology and why we think this is really a major paradigm shift for the world of electronic health records. And I think we've shown you a little bit about this scenario. So As I said before, the thing about concept cars is they're exciting and they're not quite ready for market, but they are ready to try. So there's a QR code here. If you're interested in participating, and to be honest, you don't need to be a TrakCare client. If you scan that QR code, if you miss the opportunity, come find one of us afterwards and we'll give it to you. That's a link to a simple form you can fill out to express your interest. We're collecting interest with clients who'd like to partner with us. It might be sort of usability studies with cloud-hosted sandboxes. It might be something more. We're already working with a number of customers on actually trying to get this into semi-production in a narrow format with a small number of physicians. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to partner with you and help us better understand how to roll out this technology safely and effectively. The last thing is just to thank my wonderful physician guests today. So I'd like a special round of applause for Doctors Andra, Bella, and Emmeline, who are all wonderful rock star doctors in their own right. And I'm honored to have shared the stage with them. So thank you very much.